Hello and welcome back to our FCS Dynasty. This is Savannah State's roster and schedule reveal for year number 2. Let's start it off with a quote from head coach Seth Maddox. His thoughts on the Savannah State roster and schedule going forward. I think we have a great roster this year. We've reloaded at what we lost, and I think we have a great chance to compete this year. I'm excited for what this year can hold. All our guys are hungry following the ACC title loss. We don't want to replicate that. We are chasing perfection 1 week at a time. Go Tigers! Now, of course, Savannah State, they lost the ACC championship game to the Bryant Bulldogs, who would then go on to win the national championship game over the Fresno State Bulldogs. So obviously Seth Maddox, he wants to get over that hump, beat Bryant, and they will actually be playing them in the regular season. We'll see the schedule here towards the end of this video. But that is definitely a game that you guys want to circle on your calendars. It's a huge game, probably one of the biggest of the season for both of those schools. And coming up next, we actually have some breaking news out of Savannah here for the Savannah State Tigers. And let's see what it is. Quarterback J.J. Barber has transferred to Alabama A&M, so he goes from the ACC to the SEC. And we will end up seeing him in year 3. Well, the Jacksonville Dolphins will be taking them on eventually. So, big news out of Savannah. J.J. Barber is a subscriber player, and we will try to follow him in year 3. But going forward right now, he's no longer on the Savannah State Tigers, so that's actually a big loss for the Tigers. They do not have a backup subscriber quarterback, so they're just sticking with Jeremy Carroll, the sophomore, and we'll see what they can do. Hopefully Carroll stays healthy and can lead this team to an ACC championship and a possible national championship berth. But let's get into the roster. Check that out real quick. And there is Jeremy Carroll, 82 overall sophomore. He's 6'5", 257 pounds. And he had a really good season last year. 176.4 quarterback rating, very good. 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. So a great touchdown-interception ratio. And he threw for 2,883 yards. And he was only sacked 21 times. It's not really a big number considering the rest of our players at quarterback that have been sacked a million times last season. But Carroll, 52% last year, along with 90. And he had a couple rushing touchdowns as well, 4. But negative 55 yards rushing due to all the sacks. And that's it for quarterback. Let's move on to halfback. Heisman Trophy winning running back MJ Gator Jr., 82 overall, coming into his sophomore season. Of course, he won the Heisman. He ran for 2,306 yards. He had a 13-yard average on runs. That's just insane. A stat we'll probably never see again. He had 31 touchdowns, a long of 98. He averaged 164.7 yards per game, 748 yards after contact, 35 20-plus yard runs, folks. That's crazy. 27 broken tackles, but his downfall, 7 fumbles last year. He needs to improve in that area. Now, he also had a lot of receptions for this team. He was second on the team in receptions with 27, and he actually led the team in receiving yards with 674, which was 41 more yards than Matt Meeks, the tight end. Led the team in touchdown receptions with 10, a long of 83, which is the second longest reception on the team. 503 yards after catch. Crazy numbers, only 1 drop. So a phenomenal athlete. Looking forward to seeing his sophomore season. And to back him up is another sophomore halfback, Evan Barber. As you just saw, his brother transferred to Alabama A&M. He comes in with an 80 overall. He's 5'11", 233 pounds. He had a good year last year as well. 81 carries, 639 yards, 7.8 yard average, 7 touchdowns, along with 77. 271 yards after contact, 5 20-plus yard runs, 26 broken tackles on significantly less carries than MJ Gator Jr. He only had 1 less than him. And only 1 fumble all last year. Let's see what he did in the receiving game. 10 catches, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 drops on the year. So Evan Barber, really good halfback, filling in for MJ Gator Jr. when he's tired or injured. And there's another halfback here, Zane Roebuck, freshman halfback, 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He's got a 78 overall, and he will take some snaps as well. And he's 5'10", 208 pounds. Looking forward to that. He is going to be a good player, I think. He's not going to get a lot of carries, but we'll definitely see him on the field here eventually in year number 2. Out of the receiving corps, Zay Jones, 80 overall. Jarmel Lewis, also with an 80 overall. They were both similar players last year. Lewis with 25 catches, Jones with 20. Lewis had 562 yards, Jones had 506. They both had 5 touchdowns. Jarmel Lewis had the longest reception of the season last year for the Tigers with a 90-yarder, and Zay Jones had a 73-yarder. And they're similar in drops as well. Jarmel Lewis with 5 drops, Zay Jones with 4. Now, Jarmel Lewis is a phenomenal run blocker as well, 14 pancakes last season, and Zay Jones was quite good as well with 11. So, pretty good receivers, and they can play in the run game and in the passing game. So, hopefully for them, their numbers can improve receiving-wise. They did really well last year, but let's see if they can bump those numbers up a bit. Now, the Tigers do add a freshman wide receiver, and that is a 4-star receiver, Anthony Numa, brother to the sophomore cornerback Chris Numa, and he has a 76 overall, one of the only 3 receivers recruited in the entire recruiting class. So we'll definitely see him out on the field playing some slot receiver, and he'll probably make a pretty big impact. Next, to round out the offense, sophomore tight end Matt Meeks, 87 overall. The guy was a monster last year, 38 catches, 633 yards, 6 touchdowns, long of 69. 7 drops, though. He needs to fix that, get his head in the game, keep his eye on the ball, and he is going to have a great year next year, most likely. He had 45 pancakes last season, 0 sacks allowed. Unreal numbers for a tight end. Well, let's move it on to defense. Defensive end, Kyle Rose. He has an 80 overall. He's 6'2", 249 pounds. And he had 41 tackles last season, 19 for a loss, and 8 sacks. He also had a pass deflection and a fumble recovery. And then we go to 2 freshman players here. Let's go for the freshman defensive end first. Wooly Madden, 78 overall, 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He's 6'4", 270 pounds, and he'll be on the opposite side of Kyle Rose, and most likely will make an immediate impact here for the Tigers. And after him, another 4-star recruit, Rashad Farrell, number 99. He's 6'3", 258 pounds. He's got a 76 overall. I expect him to make an impact as well on the outside of Shawn Griffin, our next player, sophomore middle linebacker, 80 overall. He's 6'3", 251 pounds, and he had 61 tackles last year. That led the team. 21 for a loss, 3 sacks, 2 picks. He had 11 pass deflections and a fumble recovery. So Shawn Griffin, great athlete here for the Tigers, and I'm expecting a similar season coming up. After that, we've got Chris Numa, and pretty much the most electric defender that we saw last season. Primetime Numa, 84 overall cornerback. Now let's take a look at his stats. They are ridiculous. 38 tackles, 4 for a loss, 9 picks, 167 yards on interception returns, long of 63. 21 pass deflections, a forced fumble, and he had 3 pick sixes. And that's not all, folks. It gets better. 37 punt returns, 679 yards, a long of 85, and 7 punt returns for touchdowns for Chris Numa. Those are crazy numbers. I don't think he'll be able to replicate that, but I'm expecting him to do almost as good. Maybe 4 or 5 this year. I think with the recruiting classes coming in, it's going to be a lot harder for kick returns and punt returns to be returned for touchdowns. And our final player, Cody Lee Jr., who's second on the team in tackles with 56. He had 2 for a loss, 4 picks, returned for 154 yards, and a long of 63 as well. 18 pass deflections, 4 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery for 30 yards, and 4 defensive touchdowns, folks. So he had 5 takeaways, and he returned 4 of those for touchdowns. Anytime he gets the ball in his hands, look out. All right, let's take a look at the Year 2 schedule for the Savannah State Tigers. They start out with a huge subscriber versus subscriber matchup as they host the 23rd ranked Jacksonville Dolphins to start things off week number 2. That is going to be one of the biggest games of the season. After that, they'll be taking on Jacksonville State from the Conference USA, their rival. That'll be a good game as well. Week number 4, they start ACC play as they host the Hampton Pirates. And after that, Tulane, 12th ranked in the country, and they will actually be traveling to take on Tulane. So they'll be traveling to the Superdome. That should be a fun game. One of the toughest tests the Tigers will have faced in this entire series so far. Then they get back to ACC play as they take on Delaware State and Norfolk State, which had a fantastic recruiting class. And then week 9, they host the number 1 Bryant Bulldogs in one of the biggest showdowns of the century. That is going to be just an insane game to commentate on. I can't wait for that one. After that, 3 away games in a row: Bethune-Cookman, Morgan State, and one of the top 3 ACC teams, William and Mary, their 10th in the country in the preseason polls. After that, South Carolina State, that finishes off their ACC play. And then week 15, final week of the season, they host the 21st ranked Eastern Michigan Eagles out of the MAC. That is going to be another tough test for them. A lot of ranked opponents here. 5 ranked opponents in the preseason poll for the Savannah State Tigers on their schedule. But I'm expecting another great year. I don't think they're going to have as successful of a year as they did last season, but probably 11 wins, including the bowl game, for the Tigers. That's my prediction. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section below. Let me know in Discord how many wins you think these guys are going to get. I think they're going to be a force to be reckoned with, of course, just like last season. I just don't think they're going to be as good with a tough schedule like this. But that's it for the video, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow with the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. Until then, take it easy, guys.